Okay. Okay, I guess am I starting? Is that Grant? How you doing?
What's up, Ravi?
You look happily married.
I am. Thank God.
Missed your wedding. I mean, I saw the wedding, but I missed it. What can we
Only
do?
happens once, thank God. But yeah, have another one.
Yeah, you only have one though, so I'm not going to beat you. The anniversary. Okay, great. Okay, let's start. Am I waiting for people, or can I start this already? I guess I can start, right? Okay, so I actually planned to do something else. That's the honest truth, but I was requested to talk about Yom Haatzmaut and Yom Zikaron, etc. And I always find it very important. No big chidushim. I just want to explain things that I personally feel, and I think they're very important. I first like to start with a disclaimer, and that is as follows. I find no value in talking about mitzvahs. So, is there a mitzvah Yeshiva Yisrael? They're not a mitzvah Yeshiva Yisrael. You can do that also on Purim. You can do it also in Rosh Hashanah. Yom Haatzmaut has nothing to do with Yeshiva Eretz Yisrael. It's not the issue. The issue of Yom Haatzmaut is not whether you're living in the country or not. The issue is not that at all. Oh, goodness. The issue is not Eretz Yisrael. The issue is Medinat Yisrael. There's a very big difference. Guys, open up your faces or I'm walking out. I want to see these people. Ivy Harris, Iris Steiber, Norm Meyerfeld, Ben, Danny Mann. Come on, open up. I want to see you. Saul Marks, good old Ben. Ben, you can open up. It's okay. I know who you are. Ben. Okay, Sammy, come on. I want to see you. It's Saul. What's wrong?
Ben's coming. He just.
Okay, are we like, hello? What are you hiding for? I won't take taxes. I promise. I mean, what's the big deal? It's very not pleasant to talk to black gray boxes that have some white name on it. Feels like I'm talking to a bunch of tombs. At least I see people alive. You know what I mean? I'm not a dervish elamesim. Don't give speeches to the dead, for goodness sakes. Okay. There we are. Okay, very good. Can we now start again? Eli Tzafati, nice to see you. Let me see your face, big boy. Connecting to audio. Okay. Well, hey, condition. Anybody attending here has to open up his video. Big Peter Gemura. Should I do some kind of a rabbinic chant on this? You know what I mean? Like throw Ketairis or something like that against the Magefa. T'nai Bal Yaver. No one is allowed to be here if he doesn't open up his video. And if you're not have a shirt on, put it on. Okay? Okay, let's get back to this. So again, I want to start this with a disclaimer. That is, I want us to get used to the idea that Yom Haatzmaut is not whatever's happening this month is not a trying to celebrate the importance of Eretz Yisrael. For that, I can celebrate it every day of the year. It's got nothing to do with it. Totally nothing to do with it. Not going into whether there is or not a mitzvah deraisa, except for the Ramban. I don't think there's a single Rishon that would think there's a mitzvah deraisa of Yeshiva Yisrael. It runs between an erech elyon deraisa or a mitzvah derabana. But between you and me and the lamppost, the Ramban himself says that the Rashi argues with them. So I don't think that's our issue. Our issue is not mitzvahs Yeshiva Yisrael. That's not important. Whether it's a mitzvah say derabanan, or according to the Ramban mitzvah deraisa, or according to Shmuel Pshuta in the Stomach Rishonim, it's a super value, tremendous value. I mean, the Gemara says the Marshal that there's the same reason that you're allowed to divorce your wife without iksuba and come to live from Chutzlah to come to Eretz Yisrael. The same Mishnah said that if she wants to live in Bnei Brak and you want to live in Yerushalayim, you can divorce her too. Now, no one thinks there's a mitzvah saseh to live in Yerushalayim. I hope you don't think so, because there's no such pasuk. You got to get it straight. So anybody that knows the Gemara and the Rishonim knows that the Rosh the Agos Shri brings them Ram Rutenberg. The value of living Yerushalayim is man hamikdash because that's better for your religious development. That's why that only applied to Zman HaMikdash. That's also probably the pshat in Taisus, where Taisus says in Ksubas that today people we didn't in those days you didn't enforce bring that Yisrael because it's very hard to be Makai Mitzvah at least Boris in those times. Today Baruch Hashem is no such problem. So there wasn't the value. You know, the question is not mitzvah or chayva. The question is it a thing which is important to do? Because this is Eretz Hashem Hashem Elokecha Ba Mireishis Lashana Ad Ach Lashana V'Kol Ador B'Chutzlo is Domik Mishen Eloka V'Yisrael Sheb'Chutzlo is Ovda V'Yizor Sheb'Tayra. Should I go on and on? I can give you a whole night of Chazal how it's important to live in Eretz Yisrael and pick your bags up and come live here. That is true. And that is a super value which is beyond. But you know something, not every value is an imperative. Can you imagine going to my wife saying, Suzanne, the Rambam says I'm supposed to love you. That's all? Yeah, it's a mitzvah. I'll probably get kicked out of the house. You know, to say you want to be in Eretz Yisrael just because it's a mitzvah, I think God would kick us out of the house. You should want to be in Eretz Yisrael because that's where Jew is. That's where that's the biggest kivus Elokim li tov. There's no place which is more conducive to develop a relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Then being in Eretz Yisrael, I wouldn't put it the way it is. You know, I am a flag waver, but not like a very militant one usually. But it's the truth. It's as simple as that. I don't think there's another value in the Torah which Chazal spent so much on. They open up Ksubas. You don't get to the end of Ksubas. Okay, open up the end of Ksubas, Shnei Daina. You'll see. Read it. Doesn't say. I mean, this is not push it. Wanting to live in Yerushalayim, Bisman Abayis, when there was a Sanhedrin there, was a reason why you would divorce a wife and leave, and it was the right thing to do. It's crazy. And she should follow you. If she doesn't follow you, she loses her ksuba. Do you understand how important that is? There's no mitzvah say to live in Yerushalayim. I promise you. Not Deraisa, not Rabbanon, not nothing. You know what it is? It was a super value of getting close to Hashem as possible. Can everybody live in Yerushalayim? Of course you couldn't. Why do you think we had Aliyah L'Regel? Because everyone was not living in Yerushalayim. Thank God they were all over the country. But the connection to Yerushalayim, and ultimately from Chutz La'aretz Yisrael, it's a major, pivotal issue in Judaism as a religion and as a belief, as you say it. So I really think that discussing Eretz Yisrael and our connection to Eretz Yisrael and Mitzvah Yishuv Eretz Yisrael are beautiful things to talk about on any day. But today we have to talk about Medinat Yisrael. Because what happened in 1948 was not regaining Eretz Yisrael. Jews were in Eretz Yisrael for centuries. What you gained was basically an identity as a nation among nations. I'd like to explain that, what that is to me, you know, and I'm going to start with a hesped that one of the greatest Talmidim of the Alter of Slobodka wrote on Theodore Herzl. His name was Rav Blachman Kaplan. He was a chavrusa of my old Rosh Yeshiva Zechron Levracha, Reb Chatzkel Sarna. Rav Blachman Kaplan was an Ili Otzum, a tremendous, a brilliant man. He happened to be a first cousin of my Rebbe, Reb Simcha Zisl Broide. He was married to his cousin. He died very young, died at the age of 38. He was the head of the Hildesheimer Seminary in Berlin. The one that took his place after he passed away was Rev Yaakov Weinberg, the famous guy in the Baal Sridei Eish. Rav Vermelia was an unbelievable person. He was they were like brothers. Him and Reb Chatzkel Sarna were like literally like brothers. There's a very, it's very hard to grasp the Yeluishkeit and the scope of the man. The man was broad, well-read, beyond. He wrote beautiful poetry. There's a very famous song that many yeshivas sing called Shak'ach Chama. The words are actually a poem written by Rav Blachman Kaplan. Rav Blachman was loved by the Alter of Slobodka in a crazy way. There's a book that they printed after his tira many years afterwards. Actually, his son is a Ben Yochid.
No,
yes. Moshe, mute yourself. Thank you. Okay, so and it's called Bi'ikvot Hayira. And in this book, Bi'ikvot Hayira, which are basically letters and writings from Ella, he has a hesped on Herzl. And we're going to read a bit of it, just in the beginning of it. Hulo limdanu Torat Moshe. No, he definitely did not teach us Torah. Hulo limdanu halacha v'agada. Nope, I don't think anybody knows the Psadva halacha or agada from Theodor Herzl. Hulo limdanu chochmat Yisrael. Didn't even give us Wissenschaft. Umusar hayadut. No, he didn't give us sichot musar. Ki et kol eile lo horu lo me'olam. No one ever taught this to him. How could he teach it to us? He grew up in a world which is totally assimilated. All these things did not exist. Not Torah, not halacha, not Agoda, not Nusra, not Chacham Yisrael. Didn't exist where he grew up. He grew in a terribly assimilated world. Ach, but hu limdanu lomar shtei milim. He taught us to say 2 words. That's all he taught us. He taught to say these words in places and situations was until he came, we didn't dare think of using those words in public. Lo yaznu, lo yicholnu lomran. What words? Ivri anochi. I am a Hebrew. Achen, oh, it's true. Bet midrash, yeah, in the yeshiva. Liad ha'amud, yeah, next to the stender. Yechonu lomar zot tamid. Of course, we always said that we are Hebrews, we are Hebrews, we are Hebrews. Yechonu afil lichtov velikro zot b'chol sifreinu ma'amoren. Yes, in our own personal articles, we could write this, talk about this. Ub'chol yitoneinu v'chovrotenu, in our pamphlets, in our newspapers. Yes, we're Jewish, we're Jewish, we're Jewish, we're Jewish, we're Jewish. Yes, we called ourselves a nation. There's one place which we didn't dare call ourselves a nation. In that place where national identity is defined and presented of all the world, where is that? In the political arena of the world. As a very famous writer, Yudah Leib Gordon, once described the Jews. He said, Lo am, lo eda, ki im eder. They're not a nation. They're not even a community. They're just a crowd. We had no sense of identity of, we were like a flock of sheep, but not even sheep. Sheep are pampered. We were like a flock of lepers. And I want to understand what this man meant when he said this. It's a very, very important thing, and I want to discuss it. What does it mean, the capability of us saying, yes, we are a nation. We are a people. We're not just a religion. We're actually a nation. And that's what Herzl taught us. And the realization of Herzl's dream happened in 1948 in Heiyar and developed in greater sense, actually, if you think of it, in 1967. Also, a big avla to look at Yom Yerushalayim is some kind of thing to do with Jerusalem. It's a joke. Those who lived in that period of time as me know what it was. Jerusalem was captured, yes, very nice, on the 3rd day of the war. The war went on for another 3 actually. The war with Syria only started then. We celebrate the culmination and the victory and the issues of the 6-day war. There's no din of saying Halava Idoya and capturing the Kaisel, Zaymer Moichel. It's like buying a shul. People take Yom Yerushalayim also out of context. They talk about Jerusalem. What's it got to Jerusalem? something happened in 1967, which was the culmination of what started in 1948. And anybody who has a sense of history can see the flow, how it goes, with one thread going from one to the other. It's what you call a mak. We haven't finished yet. There's a makva patish happening, hopefully soon. But it's a thread that one can see. It's obvious. What is all this? You know, when I was a kid, my dad was a card-carrying Agudas Yisrael member. You know, the real thing. But yet it was always that way. We lived in Chicago. That on on the 4th of July, my dad hung out a big flag. It was stripes. But on Yom Haatzmaut, he also hung out a very big flag. You know, I said, Abba, what's the story? Come on, what's the deal? You know, with a kid, and I always wanted to know, and I always asked questions. I still remember he told me, he says, Mendel, you have to understand. You see the red, white, and blue? That's the first hotel we had in history. Do you know that we were like the homeless living under a bridge, drinking cheap wine in brown bags? We were living in under, or in the cardboard boxes in the old Riverside Park. Now it's not there anymore. In the old days, that used to be full over there. Actually, I still remember homeless people living in Strawberry Fields, which is opposite the Dakota. I'll never forget it. Manhattan. I don't know if you know Manhattan. Central Park. So there's a very right in Central Park West. There's probably the most prominent building in that area is called the Dakota. That's where Henry Kissinger lived. That's where Richard Nixon lived. I still remember they used to have a sign: no entries for dogs, Jews, and Negroes. You know, this was like a choshev, waspy building. And mamish across the street was Strawberry Fields. That's where John Lennon of blessed memory was assassinated. So it's called Strawberry Fields. I know there's a song also like that, if I'm not mistaken. Strawberry Fields Forever. Anyway, so there was a cardboard box with a homeless person living there. It's unbelievable. Like in Strawberry Fields, opposite the Dakota, a guy's living in a cardboard box. You understand? Do you understand what it means to be homeless? I once went to interview homeless people living under the bridge. I met a guy called Bernstein. He went to RJJ. Unbelievable. It's an unbelievable thought. My daddy told me, you know what? We were homeless. We were homeless and we were nothing. And we were basically drinking the cheap wines of anybody that would take us in, but they didn't even want to take us in. We were afflicted and suffered. And you know what? July 4th, 1777, I think it is, or 6, I think 7. Yeah. Now the first hotel opened up, which actually invited us to come in and allowed us to be who we are, and not to say, no, you must convert or you must this, and we will not be persecuted. That's a hotel, and you say thank God for that hotel. So my father always celebrated July 4th, not just with the baseball game, and he didn't play baseball or anything like that, but no, he thanked the Kadosh Baruch Hu and Maidim that there was the United States of America because this was a hotel for the Jewish nation. And it says, okay, Abba, I got that. Okay, what the other one? It says, don't you understand what that is? We finally have a home. It may have leaking pipes, and you got crazy cousins living with you, and the neighbors are atrocious, and the sewage is blocked up, and I don't know what. It really needs fixing up. But brother dear, it's home. We haven't had that for thousands of years. So Dad said, Mamish, thank God for a home. And I want to understand what this is to have a home. I want to understand what it means as a people to be homeless. And this is what I want to understand. It goes like this, if you ever daven seriously on Rosh Hashanah, on Yom Kippur, then you know the Iker Tefillah of Yom Roim is Malchus. Malchus HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Melech HaKadosh, Melech. We all sing, HaMelech. Ask Rabbi Zatz. I mean, he does that for Shachris, HaMelech. It's a big thing. So, what exactly does that mean? Did you ever try to think? What do you visualize when you think HaMelech? Do you think like a jughead crown with a beard coming out? Like, what do you visualize when you say HaMelech? He's the king. I think of Elvis Presley. He was the king. What's mean? What exactly do you visualize? What do you think when you say God is the king? I really should open this up as a conversation. It'd be hilarious to hear your answers. The true answer probably is, I actually never thought about it. That would probably be hopefully the most intelligent answer available. And that's terrible. That is actually terrible. Because you daven all Rosh Hashanah on Malchus and you don't even know what you're thinking about. He's a king. I remember, I had this conversation with my mother, Zechron Lebracha. I says, Mom, Mashiach is going to be, there won't be any more democracy. It's going to be a monarchy. I says, it can't be. Says, Mom, you won't be able to vote him out. You're going to be stuck with him, like Jimmy Carter, and you can't get rid of him. He was a lousy president. Can you imagine being stuck with Obama? Okay, maybe the first Mashiach is going to be a good guy. He's going to have a son, maybe an idiot. Like Shlomo was, David HaMelech was wow. Shlomo was wow. Then Shlomo had a son, a loser called Rechavam. So maybe the second generation, you think he's going to live forever? Marda Kulalma. Bittul Gzer Samis is going to happen on another planet, some other time. Nothing to do with Mashiach. Mashiach, maybe an old man who will die. And then, B'mir Hashem. There'll be Tchias HaMeisim at one time, but no one said that happens in Bisman HaMashiach. If you learn the Gemara Sanhedrin, you would know that. Tchias HaMeisim, Bittul Gzer Samisa, and Mashiach are three different issues. And there could be 1,000 years difference between them. I want us to understand this. So really, I says, Mom, it's going to be a monarchy? Do you want a monarchy? She said, I don't want a monarchy. She says, Mom, it's going to be a monarchy. You have to ask her the question, do you really want Mashiach? Do you want a monarchy? You interested in a monarchy? It's not just going to be a monarchy, it's going to be a theocracy also. It's going to be run by two heads, the king and the Sanhedrin. It reminds you, I hate to say it, of Iran today. You have the mullahs and them, and they have the president. They're going to have a monarch, and there's going to be a Rosh Sanhedrin. That's what our nation is going to look like. That is Pshuta K'mashmo. You open up Rambam. This is not Dimyonis. This is not a game. That's what you're praying for. Why is this important to you? Why would anybody want a monarchy? Why? The Gemara says, in the Gemara of the Zohar, talking about Esav, it's a pasuk in Sefania. Kotnata ba'umois bozui atam ma'oid. Esav is called bozui. There's no kavod. The Gemara says, why? She'einu mamid melech ben melech. There's no lineage of monarchy. We all know that in Rome, you know what I mean? The Senate would decide who would be Caesar. Or if you killed the other guy and got the senators to agree, that's something else. Rome, Edom, is called Bazui Ma'oid She'einu Mamid Melech Ben Melech. A democracy is called a bizayon. Unbelievable. I think it's very efficient. But that's not the din of Melech. Okay? There's no way that's going to change. That halacha is the way it is. The Rambam brings it to Ladina. Kodesh Baruch Hu wants Melachim, because he's also a Melech. You have to conceptualize Melech and understand the chshivas of Malchus to understand what this really is. I don't know what you perceive as Melech, but let's think how Chazal understood what Melech is. We know that the Midrashim are full of a concept called Arba Malchios. There are four kingdoms, so to speak, which took away the kingdom from Kisei Hashem of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and ultimately the fourth kingdom will return it to Mashiach ben David, will return the Malchus to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. These are midrashim in every way you want it. And the arts look at Medrash Rabbah there. If you really want mamish in the beginning. The one who elaborated on this in a beautiful way, and actually has a good English translation, is the Maral of Prague in a book called Ner Mitzvah, the Mitzvah Candle, where there he describes at length the historical background of the Arba Malchus, what this means, and it's really a tremendous thing to see. I had an acquaintance, 50 years ago, it's a long time, called Shlomo Malin, that translated it in a very nice way. I forgot what it was called. The Mitzvah Candle. The Mitzvah Candle in English, and he has an excellent translation as far as this whole thing. I think it's very, very, very important to get a hold of it and read it. I think you can get it on Amazon. It's more than worth reading. Sometimes you read things in English which give you historical perspective. It means much more to you than hearing, another vort of a Chazal, etc. You have to be able to okay, can I pinpoint this in history? How do I identify with it? And say, yes, we are people of a certain cultural background, which these things really help us. I can tell you it helped me. And because of things like this that I explored a lot of different disciplines in order to understand Yesodis of Emunah and Chazal. Very simple. I explored meal habits of Persian Empire to understand certain Gemaras about Hichas Seuda. I think, figure you got to know everything, so you have to know that, but that you have to do this. So I think this is just a good thing to read, the Mitzvah Candle. And he describes how Abba Malchus really, it means 4 kingdoms. And today, so to speak, we are in the kingdom of Esav, which is what we call the kingdom of Rome. Now, I looked at this the first time. I said, Rome? Rome is a good place to buy a Borsalino and to get good leather goods. There ain't no kingdom of Rome. Italy, are you kidding? They good pasta. What kind of kingdom of Rome am I subjugated to? Are you kidding? Edom, Krachash, Raimi. But when one reads Maral, one understands that we talk of a kingdom, we talk of a culture. We talk of a culture. And here I will explain this. You see, how do you find a nation? A nation is defined by a common history, usually a common land, and a common culture. We have a history together, we have a land together, and a common culture, which comes specifically in language and other mannerisms, priorities, etc. The person that lived under the Persian Empire was introduced to a very, very, very gluttonous, hedonistic culture. Read Megillas Esther and find out. Maral elaborates how it was a world of total taiva in the lousiest way. Look at the morals expressed in the first parak of the Megillas Esther, and you'll understand the man had he had these feasts going forever. Who do you think paid for it? My mother-in-law. Who do you think paid for all this? He taxed the guts out of his empire. And actually, that's what it says at the end of the Megillah. You have to pay for this whole mess. Yes, that's what this was. It was a terrible reality that the chosen few, the leaders, the elite, lived off the backs of society, of their serfs, if we say, and they partied in their Versailles. Nowadays, there would be a French Revolution and his head would have rolled. But that was Persia. Daniel describes him as a hungry bear. Big, cumbersome, fat, and is hungry. That's how Daniel describes the Malchus HaRishoina, the Malchus of Modev Poras. In that culture, Jews had to find God. When you're subjugated to a very, very heavy society with a lot of values, Do you realize what happens? You acclimate, and those values become yours, and yet you're going to stay religious. Religious, I don't mean observant, I really mean religious, and it's living with a real God awareness. Far cry, those who know what I mean. I don't want to elaborate, but I think some of my students will understand me. There's a far cry between the person which is observant and the person which lives with the religious values and religious awareness. Religious awareness. Ruach Kodesh Baruch Hu Tzadikim Shemuatim. Religious awareness, God awareness, that's something unbelievable. Can you be a religious person in the Persian culture? Well, they failed in the beginning. Russia, but then somehow they found themselves. So we have different Malchias. We had Bavel, if you really want to know, then Porus and Madai. Then we went to the Malchus of Yavon, and you can go back to the different things I've taught during Hanukkah, the different challenges of each society in which we as Jews have to find our way in religion. Today we live basically in a major society called Western society. Basically started off actually from Italy, Rome, started basically when Justinian made Christianity as the national religion of the empire, going further in the Renaissance, etc. This whole reality has evolved, and the world you're in today, the priorities, the culture, the way you feel and see things, the way you react to things, is the culture that you're in, and you honestly have major challenges in religion due to it. I do not just mean, a virus, keeping your eyes in your sockets and your hands in your pockets. That's a problem of its own. I'm talking about your Weltanschauung. How do you see things? To what issues are you sensitive and what are you total callous? How do you feel about certain mitzvahs? You have a hard time really fulfilling them because you can't identify with them because they're awkward and foreign. For me, I've said it multitudes of times. Capital punishment? Ooh, I feel bad. And every time I say a shiva shiftenik rishoina, I have to figure out how to say it. Is anybody here really interested in seeing a hot lead milkshake poured down somebody's throat? Do you want to see you want to see, forget Arba Mises, Kippah. You know what they did? It says that once in 70 years you didn't do Arba Mises, good. But they did Kippah, Gemara and Sanhedrin. You know what they did? Any guy they couldn't technically nick, they put him into a black hole, fed him a terrible diet, and he died out of a bleeding ulcer. So no one got away with it. Get this straight. You're right, the Gemara said that Bezdin didn't do Arba Mises. Okay, we'll waste them without this. This is really Chicago, man. You think you get away, get away. It's Halacha Moshe Messina, Kippah, the Gemara in the Pais and Sanhedrin. No one got away. And believe me, it's atrocious death. You live in a solitary confinement and get your kishkas blown out from a bleeding ulcer because of the diet they give you. They made sure that happened. So that's what you're saying every day. Hashiva Shiftenu Kvarishayna, V'yatzenu Kivatchila, V'hasem Imenu Yoga and V'anacha. You feel it's terrible without that. And I don't think there's anybody that I know can honestly say that feels that. And if you know what you're saying, you have to start figuring out how to say it and mean it. And how do I deal with that, with so many other things? I still remember as a kid traveling on a Greyhound bus going to New York. Those days we didn't go by plane, 17 hours on the bus to school. And, when you want to put on tefillin, you went into these old wooden phone booths and put them on. Or, the people shouldn't see what you were doing. Or when you daven mincha, you went into a phone booth and held the receiver. The people should think you're using the phone and talking. You talk to God with the receiver in your hand. That was also awkward for us. Today, Baruch Hashem, things are different. We know the world is open to multi-ethnicity. And okay, if the Hare Krishnists can wear funny clothes and sing all over Manhattan, I can daven mincha in Times Square. Okay, but when I was growing up, that wasn't actually true. And it was very uncomfortable. Many things we did was uncomfortable. You think it was comfortable walking around with a lulav and an esrig in Chicago? Back then, in the early 60s, are you kidding? They thought you were weird. Palm Sundays in 2 weeks, man. What are you doing? You know what I mean? You got it all wrong. Okay? So they know it was awkward. The Teretz says it's true. We are culturally challenged. We are terribly culturally challenged because we are not culturally Jewish. Our culture is basically that of the Malchus that we're in. We are products of the Western world, and that forms what makes us happy and sad, what we feel is good and bad, comfortable or irksome. But we observant, because religion is just a religion, doesn't have to be a culture. And there's a major clash between your religious identity and your cultural identity. And that, my friends, is a keystone to most challenges that we fail in. If you could totally identify with what you're doing, you'd fail much less. If you could identify with why not to do certain things, you'd actually fail much less. Because you're at end of things, because there's so many things. Okay, I got to do it. It's an obligation, right? It's not enough to tell me, oh, yeah, but you get Olam Haba. I get to meet I still have to meet the person which does mitzvahs for Olam Haba. You have to be very frum, believe me, I tell you right now. Okay? Ask yourself the question, why you do mitzvahs? No one's doing it because you're going to get a cherry pie in heaven. You do it because you feel good about yourself by doing it, for whatever reason it be. That's the honest truth. Think about it. But there's so many things we're not sure we should feel good about. We're at odds with them. There are mitzvahs which are less popular, mitzvahs which are more popular. It all has to do with the cultural reality you're in. If it's haimish to stay lashon hara and it's haimish to daven after Zman Tefillah, so the Shulchan Aruch can take a walk. I feel comfortable without it. A lot of mitzvahs like that. That we look at it, come on, it's haimish. Lamosh, it seems to me lately I've come to a conclusion in certain societies and religion, pikuach nefesh is haimish not to be choishish for pikuach nefesh. Seems to be quite haimish. I look at the common denominator of the communities where you're affected. I come to the conclusion that the word is not, wherever it's Hamish, and now it's also Hamish. Lakewood is Hamish. Oichet is good. Kids are Hamish and Hamish, both not good. If you live with good old-fashioned Shulchan Aruch, then you'll do well. But if hypothetically your society is as such, which feels, it's important to save lives, for whatever reason it be, then that's very good. If your culture would have been Shulchan Aruch, your culture would have been Ratzon Hashem, then we wouldn't have so many people affected and inflicted. Because Teretz is, once again, it's not really identification with your religion. You lack the cultural identification with what you're doing or refraining from. And that's when we do or don't do them. I repeat, I think most people do mitzvahs and refrain from averos because they feel good about doing mitzvahs and feel bad about doing averos. For whatever reason. Ultimately, to the extent that you feel good about something, you'll do it. And if you're okay, it's okay, but not good about it, you're not going to run after it. And there's certain averos you don't feel so terrible about, Lamashal, Bittul Torah, or so many other things. Yeah, you won't do it. Somehow, you say, God, come on, you don't really mean it. And you start telling God what you think you should do. That's the way we are. For a malchus, when we talk of a kingdom, we talk about a cultural identity. Because what is a malchus? A malchus is, must have been like 30 years ago. I remember I was once invited to the UK for Shavuos. No, my boys were already 15. Yeah, 25 years ago. we went to the UK for Shavuos, and we were there for a few days. Took them to the Tower of London. Now, if you know the history of England, Tower of London, there's a lot of intrigue and death happened over there. You know what I mean? You can tell a lot of stories there. And it also happened to have the crown jewels there. So I remember my boy asked me, Abba, why do they give this to the public? Why aren't they ashamed of the terrible things of their historical background? Why are they exhibiting all this? That's who they are. This is what made England today. All this is the accumulation of all these crazy things that happened. Ultimately, that is what English culture is. England is the accumulation of its experiences together, etc., creating a certain culture. All this is the end result of the total mass of experiencing of the great people living on the great island. That's what a culture is. A culture is a perspective of reality defined by the common experiences of a people for an extended amount of time, creating priorities, values. It's actually their paradigm is how they see things and thus how they react to things. You know, when I first came to Eretz Yisrael, I was a young child. I was like 3 weeks before 15. You know, Eretz Yisrael was like, wow, you know, I got off the plane and I went to still remember in Lud it was, and I laid down on the floor and kissed it. Unbelievable sensitivity of an innocent child. And I don't think I would do it today. I lost that sensitivity. I lost that sensitivity by being in Eretz Yisrael and people taking it for granted. When Eretz Yisrael was a dream that finally was unbelievable, I came to Eretz Yisrael, my father didn't, my grandfather didn't, my grandfather did, great-father didn't. And here I come to a Medina of the Jews in Eretz Yisrael. I laid on the floor and I kissed the tarmac. It was a natural reaction. How could you not? And I didn't kiss it, Shteta Gemara that the Amoraim did, believe me. Because how could you not? Sensitivity which is gone. Sensitivities are defined by the society you live in and ultimately creating the way you feel, express, and think about things. It creates your language. If you live in a society which is Kula Kedusha and Taira, you develop certain sensitivities. You live in a society which you care wherever you go, it's Kula, whatever it only be, La'epech HaKedusha, you totally lose certain sensitivities. You become terribly callous. And that's your challenge. And there's damage done. There's nothing to be said. That's the truth. When we talk of a melech, we talk as a liboy leibah shala'am. The king is that person which embodies the historical, cultural identity of the nation. That's what the king is. When people honor Elizabeth, that old grand lady, they're honoring English national identity and history. You're honoring Queen Elizabeth, you're honoring the Union Jack. Flag's a rag, man, on a stick. No, that expresses the identity of this body of people as a nation and a culture. That's what that flag is. And you know what the biggest problem in Gullus was? The problem for us Jews in Gullus was not that we were not religious. No. Actually, if I come to think of it, religion thrived in Gullus. What are you talking about? Bais Rishon, religion was on the down. They were all like Avodah Zarah. The king there killed hundreds and hundreds of Nevi'im. What are we talking about? Bais Sheni, are you kidding? Does anybody know what Bais Sheni looked like? Take even the Hasmoneans, as soon 3 generations after the Great War of Hanukkah, was total assimilation. It was Misyavnim. Yane went and slaughtered Tanoim. Read the Gemara in Sanhedrin. It was terrible here. Tzidaikim were running the show. All the Kohanim Gdolim were not religious. They were Tzidaikim. They were Kaifer and Teresh Bal Peh. Religion was on the way down, if you really want to know. And the crazy thing happened, Dafka in Gullus, religion thrived. Dafka in Gullus, all of a sudden, everyone was religious. Jewish identity then went totally around religion. That's you're a Jewish, you're religious. The downfall of religion happened with the emancipation when we're talking the Napoleonic era. When the ghetto walls fell down, that's when things came in. But otherwise, during the whole Golus, brother dear, the Shach and the Taz, the Magen Avram, the Ktsois and the Sivas were not exactly written in Tveria. There was a ribuy of Chachmas Torah and Digdig b'mitzvahs Dafka and Golus. Religion did not suffer in Golus. What did we lose in Golus? Something much more important. God does not want to be a head of a religious order. He wants to be the king. He wants to be the embodiment and the source of your values, of your culture, your language, and the way you see things. God does not want members of a religious order. You are not the Benedictines. You're not wearing funny clothes and walking around with hoods. You're not Franciscan friars. God wants a nation. He wants to be a melech. Says Mefurish and Chazal, the word God, the machshava of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to want to create the world, Mashal brings it down because he thought, Ano Emlech, I want to be a melech. God does not just want to build a world and you should be religious. Religion is supposed to be part and parcel of your culture. It's supposed to be it's supposed to form the way you think, see, feel, and act. There's so much gray area in life, which is not legislated by the lawyer's religion called Judaism. Shulchan Aruch doesn't really cover everything. But if you internalize the value system of Torah, then you already know every culture perspective, understand what does God want from me now in this situation. Remember, there's a Tshuva Nigris Moshe that they asked him about a couple asked him about buying insurance policies. I don't remember exactly, I saw this years ago. Which policy should I buy? This kind of policy, that kind of policy. They asked Rav Moshe Feinstein, for goodness sakes. So Rav Moshe says, listen, I don't really know much. There's no Sefer Shulchan Aruch here. But all I know is Torah, and that's what I learned all my life. Let me tell you, according to my understanding of Torah, what the priorities should be. The man was uncultured. He had a malchus of Hashem living in his head. He was an eved of a melech. His Torah, his religion, became the paradigm, became the world view of how to see things, experiencing things, and through that to live and grow. So Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, isn't it? I say it starts with Bata Ritzoncha B'fnei Ritzonai. That's us at the best. We can annul our feelings and our will in front of the will of God because we know it's important. But we still feel irksome because at the end of the day we are annulling our feelings. And then there's finally a Ritzoncha Ritzonai. Can you find a way of identifying with his Ratzon? Because his Ratzon should naturally be yours. That part of Ritzoncha Ritzonai suffered terribly in Golus. Religion as a practice developed, but slowly but surely we were constantly challenged. The German Jew ultimately defined himself as a German Jew. The Hungarian is Hungarian Jew, and so on and so forth. And actually, when the walls of emancipation, when the walls of the ghetto came down, we really saw this. And we see this Ad Hayom Hazeh. Our sensitivities are defined. I'm sure that if you grew up in the Deep South, your understandings of Kisik Ne'ev and Ivri may be different than if you grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, and your neighbor was a Cabot Lodge. I don't know that his grandfather came on the Mayflower. How can you say not? We're unbelievably defined by our history, by everything. You know, I give you an example. You know what I mean? Like I came to Israel, and I see these Jews love going to graves. Like, man, who went to a grave? The Bab Rebbe was alive, so no one went to a grave in those days. Who went to graves in America? A grave? Maybe to Elvis. You know, in Graceland over there, near Memphis, Nashville, wherever it is over there. Who went to a grave? And these Israelis are a bunch of grave hoppers. They take you to tour the Galilee, you're hopping graves. You never heard before. And the answer is because I grew up in America. Now, yeah, of course you go to a grave. Why not? I don't, but you know, it's normal. I don't think it's awkward anymore. I think it's something else. Not awkward, it's normal. When I first came, I felt it was awkward. So what is this? You know, oh yeah, Kolev went. Oh, so very nice for Kolev. So, you know, so let him go. You know what I mean? I don't know. So what? Then Bilam had a donkey. I don't. You know what I mean? It's reality. That's the truth. The truth is that in Gullus, we lost our cultural identity. We lost our national identity. The German was a German of Jewish faith. The American is an American of Jewish faith. And there's a difference between a Californian and a New Yorker and a Chicagoan, believe me. Okay? Yes, of course, because your cultures are different. Your language is different. The societies you grew up in different. Far cry between a French Jew and an English one. Let me tell you. Not just the accent. You'll see. And the deep down, each one of them will be affected in a different way. God is not interested in just that, being religious. Because the problem is that when it comes to the gray area, which is most of life, you'd be clueless and you will be following basically the directives of the culture you grew up in. You will not be informed for most of your life of what's Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Didn't the Ramban teach us in Parshas Kedoshim that one has to distill all of Torah and mitzvahs to understand what is called Yashar and what is called Taiv. Our norms, Ben Adam L'Chaveiroi, or our norms of behavior, B'chlal, are informed by our Torah. That capability of taking Torah and informing you as, without thinking twice, what your values are, what do you feel comfortable with, what is called right, what is called wrong. The fact that I have a problem with capital punishment is totally the product of my Western culture. The fact that I feel queasy just the thought of karbanis. And brother dear, yeah, there's gonna be karbanis off in a Ramba. Karbanis will always be. Right? There's a famous mistake that people make that think the Rambam thinks that the Karbanis are only to negate Avodah Zarah, and that's why they won't be. That's an Irish guy. Ki Yadua. Anybody who learned Rambam inside knows Rambam never said that. Rambam never said why there's Karbanis. The Rambam said why did God choose these specific animals? Because they negated Avodah Zarah. But never in any of his writings did he ever explain the reason for Karbanis themselves. The Ritva already mentions this when he explains that the Ramban misread him. I just want you to know, there's going to be Karbanis. There's going to be skirted priests slitting throats of goats, sprinkling blood on altars, and Levim with the nasal oriental music with incense, and they're going to be singing Shir Ma'alot straight out of the Kerem Temanim. It's not going to sound like your nice, German, no, that's going to happen. We're all going to, so, that's what it's going to sound like. Get used to it. That's the reality. That is, you really think that Moshe Rabbeinu, when the Levim were singing, they were singing Beethoven and Bach? I remember someone once told me, the Nigunim of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, they come from the Beis Hamidrash, says you have no knowledge of music. I studied this a little bit, and I can tell you where they came from. They're all German, most of it. Are you kidding? Time to base the Migdash? Go to open up the Arab radio. Listen to that. Much closer. You know, the stuff that gives you migraines. You ever go to a muazzin and hear him? That's what it's going to sound like. Okay? I'm not sure. The joking aside, but it's the truth. The truth is that Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to be a melech. Because he doesn't just want us to follow laws. He wants literally, I say, Ritzoinoi. And that exists literally because we have lost our national identity. We didn't see ourselves as a nation. And here's the craziest thing. The only people which chapped that was the Catholic Church. The only people which chapped that we are no more a nation is the Catholic Church. It's frightening. Things I once told the story. I was in Paris on Shivasa B'Tammuz. I had to see my in-laws and with Shivasa B'Tammuz. Now, what am I going to do? So I figured on Shivasa B'Tammuz, I'm going to go to the Louvre, to the Great Museum. It used to be the Great Palace. Now it's a museum. And I'm going to look for the bust of Vespasian and Titus, Titus and Aspasionis. I'd like to see what these guys look like. Chazal draw them up as monsters. Flavius seems to be saying they were good people. I read a little bit of Chokmas Apostles in my life. Let me see what they look like. So I went to Shivasa B'Tammuz. I went to the Louvre. I knew it quite well, and I went. By the way, it's a very chashuv museum. You're aware of that, right? I mean, you need months to go through it, so it's very important. So anyway, I sit there, and I must tell you the honest truth. Titus didn't look that bad. Okay, between you and me. Okay, that's Chazal talking about his pneumius. He didn't even, about Gaiva, yeah, but all Roman generals are big belly Gaiva, but he didn't look like a terrible person, sometimes, whatever it is. And then I went into the next room and I saw this unbelievable thing, which I'll never forget. It's a very famous sculpture, which also has many paintings of. It's called Ecclesia and Synagoga, the church and the synagogue. This was taking off the one of the sides of the cathedral in where was this in Strasbourg, and what they have is you have two twin. You can look this up on Wiki. You'll probably have a lot of different time, but this is the one I saw there, which is really exquisite. Two twin young women, beautiful, exquisite, twins next to each other, and one was dressed, royally with a crown, and a big staff. Now, the staff in those times was perceived as Malchus. Lo Yosser Shavit mi Yehuda. Shavit is Malchus, the Gemara in Sanhedrin. Okay, beginning of the first period. So she was holding this big staff, and on the staff was an orb with a cross on it. It was Mother Church. This was the Malchus of Mother Church. Next to her was her twin sister. She's blindfolded. That means she has nowhere to go. Her robes are torn. She has no crown. She's wearing thorns, actually. She's holding a staff, but it's broken. I sat there for hours. To be biting in that. And I understood what that was. What this is that the church understood, as Chazal say on the Pasuk, few psuks, the Pasha Shmini actually, Asidim umoy sa'olam loimer anu Yisrael. Time will come when the Ummah Sa'olam will say, we are the chosen people, we are the Israelites. When did this happen? Anybody that knows a bit of history knows that basically, I'm not going into the different, very important book written by one of the fathers of the church called The Eternal City. Sometimes you hope wants to be a dayan, you have to read certain Sifrei Avodah Zarah to know what not to believe. Mashetoshiv. Okay, when you say Arab, and part of my Bittul Torah, I read that too. And there's a whole theology there, which becomes basically the norm of Christian theology for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's called replacement theology. That God basically, by driving the people, Jews, out of Israel and destroying their temple, had broken his covenant with them, and they no more are a nation, therefore they have no more covenant. Their staff of Malchus is broken, and therefore there's no more Am Yisrael. And God gave the Kedusha of Am Yisrael to Mother Church and its embracers. This went on for hundreds and hundreds. From the very beginning of the church, Ad Kimat, actually really want to know when it's really started being undone. John Paul, good old, the nice Polish Pope, is the first one who started unraveling what? 40 years ago? 50 years ago? They actually believe that our staff is broken. The pasuk which says La Yosser Shevet MiYehuda U'Mechokik Bein Raglo, that there will always be a Malchus in Klal Yisrael. Shevet V'Loshen Malchus Kimavur and Rashi and Sanhedrin. Shevet is Srora Meruba. Mechokik Bein Raglo Mechokik is Srora Muetis. We had two Malchias in our life. We had the Malchus of the Melech and the Malchus of the Rosh Sanhedrin. As I told you, we have a mixture of a monarchy and a theocracy. And the church said that basically we lost it all. God threw us into Golus and we have no more sense of nationhood. We are not a nation. We're just a bunch of people which seem to claim a religion.
Yes.
And the reason we lost this identity of nation, they believe, is because we did not embrace their Savior. And there's no way you can read this. If you really want a list, I can give it to you, of the fathers of the church, that there will never ever be a nation again of the Jews. They will never have a country. They will never be. They only exist now to testify for the veracity of the Old Testament in order to believe in the New Testament. That's why you're here. You're an edus on the Old Testament. And we will suffer constantly because we did not embrace the Savior. And that's why the church condoned the terrible Yisur of Yidden through Dairis. That's what they believed in. And many of them still believe in this. That was Golus. That was Golus. The worst thing is that the Jews also believed in it. And the Jews start believing that they're a nation, and they believe they're nothing more than a religion. And they believe, therefore, and this was their major challenge in Golus. When Theodor Herzl came to try to revive, believe me, Orthodox religious leaders across the board wrote constantly, we are not a nation, we are a religion. Maybe you should read his memoirs once. We're talking about Choshvei Yidden, Talmidei Chacham, etc. They totally were in Golus. They could not accept and see us as a nation. Judaism was seen totally as a religion. A religion which has to be challenged by the contemporary cultures. They actually subscribed to Malchus HaRevius, and they accepted it without trying to walk away from it. What this man did is he revived the sense of Jewish nationality. Oh, he did not revive Judaism as a religion. On the contrary. What he did do is an unbelievable thing. He was the first one that kindled the light and the beacon that we must be not just a religion, but our religion should be a nation. And our culture of identity I add as a religious Jew, our religion should be our culture. But first understand that you're a nation. And therefore now find out what is your common culture, which makes you into a nation. Well, he's not there yet. Ultimately, we as Bnei Torah understand that the common culture is Dvar Hashem and Ratzon Hashem in Torah. But the framework of taking religion to being your culture and your national identity, you should say thank you to Theodor Herzl, and that's what Rav Avreli writes in his Hesped. Limdanu lomar ivri anochi. I am a Hebrew. That is major theological difference. That is why the church could never identify with the Zionist agenda. the Pope was actually against it. The Pope told Herzl distinctly, you people can never have a nation, for you are no more a nation. Your staff is broken, as I pointed out over there. Yes, they believed Sor Shevet Mi Yehuda Mechoking Ben Raglov. And you know what Theodore Herzl come to teach us? That no, Lo Yasur Shevet Mi Yehuda Umechokek Mi Ben Raglov. Just he had different understandings of what Judaism is, but he understood we're a nation. But we as religious Jews understanding the big picture, what this has done. And in Hey Ir, Tafshin Ches, God knocked on the door of the world and says, guys, wake up. You are a nation. You are a nation. I want you to know, this has, the church couldn't handle this. The church, I still remember when the Vatican did not recognize the state of Israel. It was not that long ago. And official policy was because they're not really ruling over biblical Jerusalem or biblical Palestine. Biblical Palestine in their eyes was Samaria and Judea, and biblical Jerusalem was the old city. And since we didn't have it, the church felt comfortable. It did not recognize us because they felt there can't be, this is a steerer to their belief. So then God, Berachma B'Ratzumim, brought us the 6-day war, which was Taka with great Rachman. Don't want to talk at the moment about I still remember how they set aside all of Gan Haatzmaut. I don't know if you know where it is in Jerusalem, Gan Haatzmaut. It's not far from the Wall of Astoria, a very big garden. That was all prepared as a cemetery. They were Mekadosh the whole Gan Haatzmaut as a basic forest. That's the amount of people we expected to die just in our area of Jerusalem in that war. Berachman Atzumim, that didn't happen. What did happen, that God brought us back to the old city of Jerusalem and to Judea and Samaria. You know what he's telling you? It's not just Baruch Hashem, we had another kever to go to, and the kever rochel and the kaisel. Do you understand what it is? He was giving a slap in the face to replacement theology and saying, they are a nation and this is their land. And I never broke my covenant with them. But that's exactly, he slapped the face of the Vatican. That's what happened. The first slap was in Hey Ir Tafshin Ches, and the big patch was in Tafshin Chav Zayin. At that point in time, the Vatican had no brayer but to recognize the state of Israel. It didn't take long before John Paul I, actually the second, excuse me. John Paul, the first one died after a week. John Paul II came and said that no, there's no more replacement theology, but rather our older brother is Judaism and we are the younger brother. And suddenly he said that the Jews do not have to embrace the Savior of theirs. They have their own way of attaining paradise. The unraveling of replacement theology came together with us reattaining our national identity. That has major ramifications. Chazal teach us that the Geula comes in 2 stages. There's Mashiach ben Yosef and ultimately Mashiach ben David. Rav Kook in his famous Hesped HaMisped B'Yerushalayim elaborates on this. It's worth reading. Teichen Advarim, that the Geula comes in 2 stages. Stage number 1, a return to the basic framework of national identity. Yes, putting the staff back in our hands. My government, my army, I'm a nation, I have a country. That's the first stage of the Geula. Mashiach ben Yosef, he sees Lav Dafka as a person, but an idea which will bring people together to re-embrace Jewish nationhood. And that will be recognized by the world, I repeat, including Mother Church. And finally, the second stage of the Gula is Mashiach ben David, which all of a sudden there we have Umolo Urs Das Hashem Kimayim Liyam Mechasim. Then there will be the cultural upheaval, which the body of that national culture will be Torah Hashem and Ratzon Hashem, as seen in the Gila of Sinai v'chulu. What you're looking for from Mashiach is not some guy that's going to do you miracles or favors. It's someone that's going to be the embodiment of your national identity through his Torah and his tzidkus. And you're going to see everything through that cultural reality. And ultimately, the gray areas of your life will then be lit up and clear. You'll know what to think and what to feel. Always remember, our biggest challenges are the gray areas that we don't have anything written in Shulchan Aruch. Or we don't know about Shulchan Aruch. Believe me, if Torah would be internalized as a culture, you would know what to do. Walking away, it's easy to leave the gullus. It's so much harder to take the gullus out of you. We have to come to Eretz Yisrael and embrace identity, our national identity, and ultimately seek our national culture within Torah and mitzvahs. That's our private bringing of Mashiach ben Yosef, the David. But this talich, this process of Mashiach ben Yosef, it's clear as day. We see what's happening in front of us. The Chiddush HaMalchus is what happens in Chodesh Iyar. I repeat, I always say, this is what I say every year. I say, Ummah Soilim said, Anu Yisrael. Ummah Soilim said, there's no more covenant. God broke his covenant. Ummah Soilim said, Sar Shevet Miyehuda Mechokim Ben Raglov. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu in 1948 and ultimately 1967 said, there is only one Yisrael. And God, Loi Hofer is Brisai. And Lo Yoser Shevet Miyehuda Umechokim Ben Raglov. That's what I think about on Yom Haatzmaut. It's a day of retelling me that we are a nation and the covenant was never broken. Never broken. And we are a melech and a malchus. There's a bunch of literature I don't want to say about who people that came and said that due to the Holocaust, Jewish, Orthodox Jewish thinkers, God broke his covenant, and therefore one of them even writes that if we do mitzvahs to now, it's kemat begeda ena mitzvah v'oisa. A prominent person, I actually knew it was. Rachmana litzlan. Well, he's not alive, so I will say Afar Lapiu. God never broke his covenant. We may not understand history, and we thought you don't. But he never walked away from us. At the most, we turned our back on him. Why he does things, I don't know. But God promises that he will never break his covenant, and he didn't. And even after the terrible Holocaust, what many people said, I guess he walked away from us. And then in 1948, all of a sudden, he made this big splash. I'm here. Don't think that broke my covenant. Don't think I walked away. Well, then why did you do what you did? Don't know. He didn't tell me. But I know the answer is not because he broke his covenant. The answer is not because he walked away. Because in 1948 in Hey Year, remember, this is it's a statement of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. I'm here. I never left you. You're always with me. And you are a nation. Walk out of Golus mentally, think yourself as a nation, think yourself that this is your land and you are part of a nation. Think of yourself that this is the place where we are closer to Kadosh Baruch Hu. That is our primary goal as a nation. It feels awkward to be a Frenchman in New York. It should be awkward to be a Jew anywhere except for Eretz Yisrael. I'm not working for the Sechnut, and this is not an Aliyah push. Sorry, not the moment. But one thing I know, even if you have to be there, it should feel awkward. If it doesn't feel awkward, then maybe Taki, you don't chap yet what happened in 1948. You don't chap what Yom Haatzmaut is. You know, For a whole year, we went through this terrible political turmoil in this country. And you say, this is what we were waiting for? So it says, yes, Baruch Hashem. Yes. Part of being a nation, having crazy cousins in the house. I told you, my dad told me, we have a home. We got a few crazy cousins living in the house. The pipes are leaking. I got bad neighbors. The sewage is bad. But so what? It's home. How could you not want to be home and understand this is home? To the extent that it's not awkward to be in Gullus, we have to start calling Chutzlars Gullus. This shouldn't be Tochnit Chutzlars, it should be Tochnit Galut. We have to recognize what Gullus is. It's a stira to our national identity. We were there, and maybe Al Pidin you're allowed to be there. I'm not dealing with these things. I couldn't care less. Gedolei Olam stayed there. Moshe didn't make Aliyah. The Rav didn't make Aliyah. The Bav Trev didn't make Aliyah. And I'm not their lawyers. They obviously didn't think they were mechuyev to, but I promise you they felt awkward being there. Because I know they were holy people, and their whole libi b'mizrach, but I am Suf Ma'arav, like Rihal writes. No question that they were living in Eretz Yisrael. They were lifnei Hashem nebuch, not beguf, but at least beruach. I think that's a very important thing. Yes, this is very important these days. So the question is not, is there a mitzvah? Do I say halal? Don't I say halal? With the bracha, without a bracha? All this nitpicking, religious flip-flap conversations make such a great day small. Local team, it's much bigger than that. But this one says it this way, this is what the oomph is the difference? The question is, do you understand what happened here? Do you understand the enormous gravity of this day, that God actually slapped the face of the church and told us, guys, wake up, I'm here, I never left you, and you are a nation. That's what Itzuma Shuyayim is. You're asking me what Yom Haatzmaut is? Now, whether you celebrate it with the Chatzi Halo Halo bracha, I couldn't care less if you say Mizvah L'Soida for an hour, but then say it for an hour. I don't care what you do. Say Maidim with the biggest kavanah you had. I don't. Okay. Maidim darf sicher sagen. Say it with big kavanah. Mizvah L'Soida darf sicher sagen. Say it with big kavanah. Mizvah Shir Chanukah Sabayis to David. You should scream it from the rooftops. Between me, you'll say Hallel, you'll do a good thing. Okay? But understand, every Haidah has to be from inside, not because it's a religious obligation. I told you, it's like proposing to your wife because it's an obligation. What, the shotgun marriage? What's Hallel is because you say Hallel because it's a choiva? I mean, I can really be nasty and roll off dugmars, which will get you rolling on the floor. Hop yourself. To put such a day into the confined, constricted straitjacket of obligation is a desecration of the enormous scope of what this day is. Much bigger than all that. Understand it, because I believe it's but the more we'll try to take the golus out of ourselves, the more that we aspire to Mola Or's Dasas Hashem Kimayim Liyam Mechasim, the more we'll want Malchus Hashem, goodness sakes. God doesn't want to be the Pope, he wants to be a Melech. You pray for that in Rosh Hashanah. He wants Malchus, he wants you to see him as in him you look at the embodiment of your identity and your value system. There was a rock opera called Tommy in the early 70s by The Who. So I remember they had a song, listening to you, I hear the music. All around you, I see the light. Whatever it be, look it up. Listen to it. God wants you to sing that to him. God wants you to sing, yeah, Kadosh Baruch Hu say, this is my Melech. In him, I see my identity. In him, I see my values. In him is the embodiment of everything I am. I think I once told my students I was once in winter Windsor Palace with my kids. It's near Eton. So the kids were running around. Windsor Palace is the official residence of the Queen. Most of the time she's not there. And I'm outside, and did you ever see these, for the tourists, they have these guys, these English people with these little buggies and horses, and he's wearing a bowler hat with a leather vest, you know what I mean? He's a balagala. You know what I mean? And he's standing there, and over see him standing, he stands up straight, ramrod straight, and I ask, hey, Matt, what's up? How come all of a sudden you're standing up straight? He points to the flag. The standard of the Queen rose because when she's in residence, they put the flag up. He says the Queen's in residence. He had such a Meira Malchus that he didn't see her. I didn't see her. Okay, she was in residence, and he had derech eretz. He lived with the metzias of kavod hamalchus because he understood I'm an Englishman only because she embodies my identity. That's supposed to be kavod of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, a natural kavod of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, a natural kavod, not a mitzvah, not a chayva. It should be normal. I say God will, your Ratzon will be His if His is yours. God wants not just a symbiotic relationship, but rather a merging of two into one. That's what He wants. He'll be a melech to the extent that you want Him to be a melech. So when next time you daven for Malchus, and believe me, Yom Haatzmaut is a yom of Chidush HaMalchus. That would be the Agdora. Chidush HaMalchus and Achroza an Ish Birat HaBrit. It's pretty heavy, okay? That's what you should be thinking about. Today's the night where we think about the boys, our children, our friends, and our cousins, and our family that never are here and paid the price for this. Haruge Lud, no one goes in there, Mechitza, any person which died, Al Kiddush Hashem, there's no erich to what they are in El Mabah. Pasha, that's a course of Taiv. Once you sit down today and take a Seder of Limud, a whole dime, and be Magdashit, the Zecher, the boys that fell. What else can you give them? A Perik Mishnayisl, take a whole Seder of 4 hours, some of that's a Seder, and give it as a matana, the Ilu Nishmas, these boys. Because it's on the corpses of these boys that the Malchus has been built. Literally, the kisei of a Kadosh Baruch Hu in this world. The Mashiach ben Yosef, which ultimately will end up in Mashiach ben David. Literally, the throne of Malchus of Kadosh Baruch Hu, its legs are the bodies of these boys. So do yourselves a favor. Don't be kafui teva. Take a whole Seder, if not all your learning of the day. Believe me, if you could, that's what you should do. Give all the learning of your day le'ilu nishmas these boys, because they are raglei hamekava. If you would chop the importance of the day, then you would chop what these people have done. And then, Mitzvah Hashem, we should only be Zoichev. Yom Haatzmaut, you have what to think about. Look at the flag and think about that. Look at the fact that you're in Eretz Yisrael and it's Medinat Yisrael, Chabubala, not Eretz Yisrael. The church had any problems with Eretz Yisrael. The church had no problems if 1 million Jews would be here but wouldn't call themselves a nation. The church had a problem if 10 Jews would be here and they called themselves a nation. Well, God wanted to call us a nation. Remember that, because it's so important. Melech, Melech, Melech. That's the idea. Okay, have a meaningful Yom Haatzmaut, an important, well thought out Yom HaZikaron, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem, for Shir. Bye. Good night. Take care.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye, gebenched. Bracha v'atzlacha. בנימין, מה שלומך? רגע, תפתח רגע אחד. בנימין, איפה אתה נמצא?
כרגע אני בפילבוקס ליד צומת הגוש.
וואו, שיהיה לך בהצלחה.
תודה רבה.
הכל בסדר?
כן, פשוט יש פה בעיות, ערבים משתוללים. פה
עוד פעם,
ושם.
תגיד את הכל, מה אתה אומר?
שלפעמים הערבים משתוללים פה.
עכשיו יש להם סגר, לא?
כן, אבל כבר חודש, אז נמאס להם, אז הם זרקו בקת"ב עלינו לפני יומיים.
הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור אתכם, אתם שומרים על עם ישראל.
אמן, תודה רבה, הרב.
זייגה בן, שלישת שלום, בסדר? כל טוב
כן.
לך. ביי. Take care, guys. See you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi. Oh, that was good.